In 1964, the Congo was collapsing. Government officials had been murdered, and rebels with Soviet and Cuban support were sweeping across the heart of Africa. Desperate leaders turned to a private army, just 300 mercenaries promising to save a nation, rescue hostages, and kill tens of thousands. They became legends, then Hollywood heroes. But what no one told you is how their ruthless methods built the entire modern myth of the soldier of fortune by hiding a legacy of brutal racial violence. How did 5 Commando turn chaos into both fame and infamy? Here is what really happened when the world's most infamous mercenary unit was unleashed. Belgium's flag came down over the Congo on June 30th, 1960, and the new nation instantly spiraled out of control. Government ministries emptied overnight. Army units mutinied, looting cities as Belgian officers fled. The countryside fractured into fiefdoms run by warlords, while foreign mining companies scrambled to protect their copper and gold interests. In the capital, Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba was soon overthrown and murdered in 1961. His body was never recovered. Power shifted to Moise Tshombe, a man desperate to hold the center as the country tore itself apart. But Tshombe's authority was paper-thin. The Congolese National Army, led by General Joseph Desire Mobutu, had already staged 2 coups in as many years. Tshombe could not trust his own forces to defend his government, let alone fight off a new threat rising in the east. The country was in chaos. By 1964, the Simba Rebellion swept across the heartland, capturing Stanleyville and declaring a People's Republic of the Congo. The Simbas, backed by Cuban and Chinese advisors, drew support from Soviet bloc nations. Che Guevara himself arrived to train rebel commanders. Their advance was brutal. Entire towns fell, and thousands of Europeans and Congolese were taken hostage. The Cold War made everything more dangerous. The Congo's mineral wealth was too valuable to lose, not just for Belgium, but for the United States and the Soviet Union. Every day the risk grew that the country would become a communist stronghold in the center of Africa. Tshombe faced a stark choice. His own army was unreliable, and the rebels were closing in. He needed outside help, fast. Soldiers willing to do whatever it took to restore order. Mike Hoare was 44 when he arrived in the Congo, already shaped by war and adventure. Born in Ireland, he served as a British Army officer during World War II, then ran safari tours in South Africa. In July 1964, Hoare accepted Moise Tshombe's offer to lead a new mercenary force called 5 Commando. The job came with a promise: $1,100 per month for every man, a sum worth about $11,000 today. That pay drew hundreds from across South Africa, Rhodesia, Belgium, and Germany, many with military backgrounds, some chasing pay, others seeking a cause. Hoare's second-in-command was Alastair Wicks, another ex-British Army officer known for strict discipline. Among the most notorious was Siegfried Müller, nicknamed Congo Müller, a former Wehrmacht officer, who wore his Iron Cross into battle. Müller commanded 52 Commando, one of several sub-units Hoare organized for rapid deployment. The Wild Geese emblem, borrowed from Irish mercenary legend, became their badge, stitched onto uniforms and painted on vehicles. Hoare demanded order from the start. He enforced short haircuts, banned drinking on duty, and required church attendance. Recruits who failed to meet his standards were sent home. Hoare insisted to the press that his men were not mercenaries, but volunteers fighting communism. Yet the pay, the discipline, and the promise of action gave 5 Commando a professional edge. With 300 men under his command, Hoare had built a force ready to move, strike, and hold ground where the Congolese army could not. Hoare's men hit the ground with a level of firepower and discipline that the Simba rebels had never faced. The mercenaries carried FNFAL battle rifles, Bren light machine guns, and American M3 submachine guns, modern weapons, well-maintained and deadly. In contrast, most Simbas fought with old bolt-action rifles, some dating back to the First World War, and a handful of rusty Soviet submachine guns. Ammunition was scarce and often mismatched. The difference showed in every engagement. Hoare drilled his columns to move fast and strike hard, using jeeps and trucks to leapfrog across the rough Congolese roads, while subunits fanned out on foot to clear villages and ambush rebel patrols. When rivers blocked the way, they commandeered local boats, launching surprise assaults from the water. Cuban exil pilots in T-6 Texans and DC-3 aircraft provided air cover, strafing Simba positions and dropping supplies to keep the advance moving. The Simbas, for all their numbers, were disorganized and superstitious. Many believed in Dawa, a magic potion promised by witch doctors to make bullets turn to water. This faith in invincibility collapsed the moment the shooting started. The mercenaries rarely took prisoners. Heads appeared mounted on jeeps by the roadside, a warning to any rebel thinking of standing their ground. With each village retaken and column pushed forward, Hoare's reputation as a tactician grew, but so did the shadow of brutality trailing in his wake. The road to Stanleyville was open, but what followed would test the limits of both heroism and horror. At dawn on November 24, 1964, 5 American C-130 Hercules aircraft thundered over Stanleyville. Inside, 350 Belgian paratroopers braced for a low-altitude jump just 700 feet above the ground. The flight had covered more than 4,000 miles, racing the clock as rebel threats against European hostages grew more urgent by the hour. The paratroopers hit the tarmac at 6 a.m., securing Stanleyville's airfield in under 45 minutes. There was no time to regroup. Motorized tricycles and jeeps carried them straight into the city's heart, engines roaring past burning barricades and panicked Simba fighters. At the Victoria Hotel, the scene was chaos. Simba guards had begun executing hostages as the rescue unfolded. Dr. Paul Carlson, an American missionary, lay among the first victims. By the time the Belgians stormed the building, at least 30 hostages were already dead, some shot in front of their families. Paratroopers fired back, clearing floors room by room. In the confusion, another 18 to 33 hostages died, caught in the crossfire or killed by retreating rebels. Over the next 2 days, more than 1,600 men, women, and children were pulled from hiding places and loaded onto trucks for evacuation. The rescue became an international sensation, a rare moment of relief in a war defined by terror. Mike Hoare's mercenaries arrived hours after the first drop, linking up with Belgian forces as the last hostages were moved out. The operation's speed and scale were unprecedented. 1,600 lives saved in a city where death had seemed certain. For a brief moment, the world saw only the triumph, a daring airborne assault, a sea of rescued civilians, and Western soldiers hailed as heroes. But the battle for Stanleyville was not finished, and the aftermath would reveal a much darker side to mercenary victory. The numbers defy belief. United Nations estimates put the death toll from Simba executions at around 20,000 Congolese civilians, men, women, and children killed during the rebellion. Yet the violence unleashed in response was even more staggering. Mike Hoare later claimed that 5 Commando alone killed between 5,000 and 10,000 rebels. This was not the fog of war, but a deliberate campaign. Trophy-taking became routine, heads mounted on jeeps, skulls and bones decorating vehicles, especially under Siegfried Congo Müller. Eyewitnesses and journalists described a landscape littered with bodies, and a mercenary force that made little distinction between enemy and civilian. The brutality was systematic, not accidental, and the evidence piled up in a war where outrage was often met with silence. While evidence of brutality was mounting in the field, a different story took hold in print and on screen. In December 1964, the German magazine Konkret published a detailed exposé titled Congo Atrocity, documenting trophy-taking and Nazi symbolism among the mercenaries. Yet just 3 years later, Mike Hoare released his memoir Congo Mercenary, which soared to international bestseller status by recasting his unit as bold adventurers. The Wild Geese, released in 1978, brought this narrative to Hollywood, with Hoare himself advising on set. Soldier of Fortune magazine followed, showcasing the mercenary lifestyle as heroic and lucrative. These sources, Konkret's exposé, Hoare's memoir, the Wild Geese film, and Soldier of Fortune magazine, became the foundation of a myth that glamorized 5 Commandos' actions, even as contemporary reports laid bare the violence beneath the legend. Today, the myth of the heroic mercenary still shapes headlines and recruitment ads, while the reality of racial violence and profit-driven warfare gets buried. As private armies expand worldwide, the lesson is clear. Legends sell, but the casualties of their truth never disappear. What do you think?